Well, the war started on Friday, the 1st of September 1939, and I was listening to the BBC radio news, and the announcer said that Germany had invaded Poland. That was on the Friday. And I remember leaving the house and running across the road to where my mother was at the grocer's, just 2 or 3 minutes away, and saying to my mother, you know, Germany's invaded Poland. On the Saturday, my father booked my mother and my brother and myself to go and stay with her sister, Auntie Mabel, in Swansea in South Wales. And we travelled overnight, and we arrived at Swansea in the early hours of Sunday morning. We went to bed, but then we got up and had breakfast, and we were listening to the wireless, no television in those days. We were listening to the wireless, and the announcer said that we were at war with Germany. And my mother and her 2 sisters both broke into tears because their brothers, their 2 brothers, they'd been in the First World War, and they remember they were wounded, you know, but they never spoke about it. So they had memories from the First World War, and here was the second one coming all those years later. We weren't there a long time, possibly a couple of months or something like that, and then we went back to the school, Sir George's School in Jesmond. I was only 10 years old, and in those days, children were children, if you understand what I mean. And I just went along with whatever was happening. At the time, you did things you thought were right. The fact that it didn't always turn out that way, but unless you did something, you would do nothing, you know. Everything was rationed. All foods were rationed. You had your coupon book, ration book, and when you went to the grocers or wherever, they used to cut out the little vouchers, and that was it. There's nothing more until next week. We managed like millions of others. It was a case of having to manage, and there was no such thing as I don't like this or I don't like that. You either ate what was given to you or you went hungry. So it was as easy as that. Yeah. You kept up with the news. As I say, you only had newspapers and the BBC news broadcasts, and also the newsreels when you went to the cinema. There was always a newsreel showing you the war. I experienced air raids, and you know, I could hear them overhead and the place shaking. Yeah. But you were frightened. Of course you were frightened, because you could be killed at any minute. But we survived. I remember on VE, I think it was VE Day, my mother and I went down to Newcastle into the city centre, and with the crowds, and my mother sort of wanted to show me exactly what it was all about, and everybody was very merry and cheerful. Yeah, yes, I remember that. That was on VE Day.